Well, you are. I mean, that's, I have made, that's a public statement. I want, when I have my funeral, we're going to have High Time Quartet come in and sing. It's going to be about a 40-minute concert. But I want that song sung.
3-hour preaching in memory.
And then whenever my sandwiches to follow.
Never my sandwiches and coffee to follow. That would be the perfect funeral for me. That would be awesome. I want you to take your Bibles and turn to Joshua chapter 4. Pray for me because I have intentionally intended this to be a shorter message. Becky? And so your notes are printed in the bulletin just to give you kind of an outline as to where we're going. But with this being Memorial Day weekend, I wanted to begin by just stating this one fact. National memorials are very important. So here's the question, and I'd ask kind of all of you the question. Now, I need a little feedback, so don't be afraid just to throw out an answer. How many national memorials, you can't answer because I gave you the answer. How many national memorials do we have in the United States? Somebody give me an answer real quick.
7.
7, no. 5? No.
29.
How many?
29.
Oh, you Googled it, didn't you? Oh, Sarah whispered in his ear. Oh, that's cheating. Johnny, I thought you taught your son better than that.
He's not my brother.
He's right. He hit it head on. 29 national memorials. Since you answered, I want to hear the list. What are they? How do you know we can name a national memorial? Go ahead.
The one in Honolulu where
The Pearl Harbor National Memorial, yep. Arlington National Cemetery.
Lincoln.
The Lincoln Memorial. What? The Washington Monument, yep. We know some of them, don't we? I think of, well, what's the one in North Carolina?
NASCAR Hall of Fame.
No, in my family, he just scored all kinds of points. No, it's the Wright Brothers National Memorial down on the coast. But we know some of these, but you probably have never heard of, and I don't even know if I'm saying it right, Camisel National Memorial. How about Coronado National Memorial? Or Arkansas Post National Memorial? What other? The DeSoto National Memorial in Florida. You see, a lot of these are regional, so we don't know a lot about them. We know the ones in Washington. That's where a lot of them are centered. We know a lot of there are in Pennsylvania and other places up north. We do have the one here in our state that we at least know of, but some of these others are regional, Arkansas and Florida and other places, and we really don't know a lot about them. But I think that it's sad in a lot of ways that we don't recognize some of our nation's memorials because it means that we're really forgetting our past. By the way, what's the newest national memorial? Anybody know? It was established in 2014. Big pomp and ceremony. Not the Twin Towers. The World War I National Memorial was established in 2014, and the Washington Monument was the earliest. It was built in 1884, and I believe it was 1923 or 33 that it was established as a national memorial. But a lot of times, we as Americans, we forget our history, and we stop and we look at these memorials and really don't know what it is that we're looking at. I believe that we're losing our national identity, and we don't understand where we've come from, who we were. And since we don't know where we've come from, we really don't understand as Americans who we are. If you don't know where you've come from, if you don't understand who you are, you have no idea as to where you're going. This weekend, for example, is Memorial Day weekend. How many of you know the history of Memorial Day? How about this? What was its original name? When was that name changed? It's in my lifetime, by the way. Why is it on Monday, the last Monday of May, every year? See, we're celebrating something, and we really don't even know all of the history. It was originally called Decoration Day, with 620,000 Americans dead in the Civil War. And some are even pushing that closer to 750,000 Americans dead during the Civil War. Put it in perspective, just by the way, if you add up all of the wars that America has been involved with, from the Revolutionary War all the way to present, there's about 1.2 million soldiers that have died. That means half, or a little bit more than half, of the nation's dead died during the Civil War. Am I good? Okay. Died during the Civil War. And so it was a massive blow to the nation. With that many people dead, on May 5th, 1868, General John Logan, who was the leader of an organization for Northern Civil War veterans, called for a nationwide day of remembrance, and this is what he said in his speech. The 30th day of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, hamlet, churchyard in the land. The date of Decoration Day was May the 30th, and it was chosen because that was not the anniversary of any major conflict during the Civil War. But as we progressed through then the World War I, and as we got further in our nation's history, the holiday known as Decoration Day evolved into an anniversary of remembering all of the servicemen and women that had died in defense of their country. But it was in 1968 that Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, and it established Memorial Day as the last Monday of May of every year. And the reason that they did it, just to be honest, they said, was to create a 3-day weekend for federal employees. And it was through that act that it declared Memorial Day as a national holiday. By the way, it was 1971 that all of that took place. And within that referendum, within that law, it says at 3 o'clock on Monday, on the last Monday of the month, that we are to, as a nation, stop and have a national remembrance of those that have fallen in the service of our country. And so that's why we celebrate Memorial Day. The sad reality is that Memorial Day is remembered not so much for that, but what? It's the official what? Beginning of summer. It's the official beginning of summer vacation. And it's a 3-day holiday. And we really remember Memorial Day more for that than anything else. It's a proven reality within our nation that we have forgotten our past. I have watched survey after survey being conducted even this week as people are going on the high school campuses, college campuses, and in the business world and asking very simple history about America. It's amazing how horrible we do as remembering American history. And it's sad for me to note this. If you go to my office, one of the books that's on my shelf that has gotten used a little bit is the question for the naturalization process for people coming into our country seeking to be citizens. And there have been 5 or 6 people over the last several years that we've actually sat down with and gone over the process of what it means to become a United States citizen and help them study to take the test. And I bet if I passed out that 100-question test in this congregation, we wouldn't do very well. Because to be honest with you, I didn't do very well when I began looking at all of that history. And our society has forgotten our past. We haven't learned the lessons of our past, and therefore we really are, as it's been said many times, we're doomed to repeat the failures of our past. Our culture is running headlong as fast as we can away from our history and our heritage and the lessons of the past. And it won't be soon, it won't be too far in the future, that we stray completely away from really and truly what America really means. In our text, we come and we see that national memorials are very important, and they're not new. They're something as old as history. We come to Joshua chapter 4, and we see Israel crossing the Jordan River and into the Promised Land. And what I want to do is I want you to go home and read the entire chapter. I just wanted to, for time's sake, just show you a couple verses. And I want you to see verse 1 through verse 9. And it came to pass, when all the people were clean passed over the Jordan, that the Lord spake unto Joshua, saying, Take you 12 men out of the people, out of every tribe a man, and command you them, saying, Take you hence out of the midst of the Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12 stones, and you shall carry them over with you, and leave them in the lodging place where you shall lodge this night. Then Joshua called the 12 men whom he had prepared of the children of Israel, out of every tribe a man. And Joshua said unto them, Pass over before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of the Jordan, and take you up every man of you a stone upon his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask their fathers in the time to come, saying, What mean ye by these stones? You shall answer them, The waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, when it passed over the Jordan. And the waters of the Jordan were cut off. And these stones shall be for a memorial unto the children of Israel forever. And the children of Israel did so as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the middle of the Jordan, as the Lord spake unto Joshua, according to the number of the tribe of the children of Israel, and carried them over with them unto the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, the place where the feet of the priests, which had bare the ark of the covenant, stood, and they are there unto this day. Basically, I just want you to see what's going on here. And you'll notice in your notes, very quickly, the proceeding. Now, you've got to look back down in Joshua chapter 4 in verse 19, because it gives to us the dating of this. Notice, and the people came up out of Jordan on the 10th day of the first month and encamped in Gilgal. And when you go back and you look at Exodus and then compare it here, what we see is that now 40 years to the day has passed between the time that Israel came out of Egypt and now that they're entering into the Promised Land. 40 years. Deuteronomy tells us that it's an 11-day journey. It should have took 11 days to go from where they were in captivity over to the Promised Land, and it took them 40 years. And the reason it took them 40 years was because of their unbelief and because of their faithlessness. God had said to go in and take the land, and when they went in and spied out the land, the spies came back in numbers and said, the people there are great, and there's no way that we can defeat them. And they turned everyone against Moses and against God, and God said, fine, that's it. You'll wander in the wilderness the rest of this time, and this faithless generation will die off. Moses is dead, Joshua 1 tells us. In fact, he is buried on Mount Nebo, which is not far from where they are standing at this moment. The generation of unbelief, the faithless generation, has died off as well and have died in the wilderness. And now a new generation has risen up, and they have come back to the very place that God had brought them to almost 40 years before. And they stand poised to go cross over and enter into the Promised Land. The only obstacle that stands in their way is the Jordan River. Now, Richard, it's not the same type of river that we see today because it's dammed up in the north by the Sea of Galilee. In Joshua's day, especially, if you'll go back and look there in verse 15 of chapter 3, it says, the Jordan overflows its banks during the whole time of the harvest. The word Jordan, for those of you that don't know, means to descend. It means to go down. The river begins at the bottom of the base, at the southern base of the Sea of Galilee. It's 200 feet below sea level at that point. And it travels about 70 miles southward, and it goes to the Jordan Valley, through the Jordan Valley, to Jericho, which is about 1,400 feet below sea level. So in 70 miles, it drops almost 1,200 feet down into the Dead Sea. At the time of harvest, when the snows were melting up on Mount Hermon in the northern part of Israel, the water would overflow its banks. In fact, if you were to have gone there in the 1930s, before they built the dam at the Sea of Galilee, there was an archaeologist that was there, and he wanted to take a bath. He'd been out in the desert and wanted to take a bath. And the only way that his group would allow him to get into the Jordan River at this time was that they had to tie a rope around him, and several men held on to him while he got out into the Jordan River. That's how fast and how swift the river flows. So the obstacle was an obstacle that they could not get around. They couldn't go around it. They couldn't go through it. They couldn't go over it. They needed a miracle. And God stepped in. That's what Joshua 3 is all about. Joshua 3 says, God tells Joshua, you get the priest. They hold the Ark of the Covenant. And when they step into the rushing Jordan River, God's going to do something. When they did, God stopped the water. He stopped it, and it went all the way up to Adam, and he held the water back. And now there is a dry riverbed. And the priest walked halfway into the riverbed, and the entire nation of Israel, over 2 million Jews, passed on dry ground. But God had commanded Joshua to do one other thing. He commanded him that as a memorial, he would send one man from every tribe back out into the Jordan River where the priests were standing. And they're going to gather up 12 stones, as big as they can possibly carry. And they're going to carry them back over to the other side. And that's exactly what we have just read about. These men come and they carry the stone. And later, as we saw in Joshua chapter 4, verse 19 and so, Joshua then is going to put these stones together as a memorial in Gilgal. In fact, let me read that to you in verse 20. And those 12 stones, which they took out of Jordan, did Joshua pitch in Gilgal. And so he sets up a national memorial. And the question is, and on another day we'll go back and talk about the altar that Joshua sets up in the river, by the way. The question is, why did they do this? And why did they need these stones of remembrance set right there at their camp at Gilgal? We've read them, but I want you to see it yet once again. Look back at chapter 4 and verse 6. That these 12 stones are going to be a sign unto you. And when your children ask in time to come, saying, what do these stones mean? I want you to understand the purpose of the stones. You ready? Then you shall answer them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord when it crossed over the Jordan waters. And the waters of the Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be a memorial to the children of Israel forever. Here's the purpose of it. You ready? The reason that I'm having you do this is so that when your children come and see these stones, and they say, Dad, what's this all about? You can lean up and say, boy, do I have a story for you. Because there was an obstacle for us. God had told us to cross into the promised land. God had told us to conquer, but the Jordan River was in the way, and there was no way we could get around it. And then God stepped in, and God fulfilled his promise. I want you to understand, kid, that we serve a mighty God. He promised us the nation that we now live in. But when we look back and see what God has done for us, it's not about what we've accomplished. It's not about what we have done in the land. It's all about God. We have a mighty God that saves. But it's not just remembering. Look down at the text in verse 24, the last verse of the chapter. Because the purpose is not just looking back, but the purpose is also proclaiming forth. Which the proclamation? If you don't mind, go and read verse 23 with me, and we'll do 23 and 24 together. All right. Let's go back to verse 21. Oh, it's just so good, and I have it all marked up, and I keep going back up. I'm sorry. Then he said to the children of Israel, saying, when your children ask their father in time to come, saying, what are these stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel crossed over this Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of Jordan before you until you crossed over, as the Lord your God did at the Red Sea, which he dried up before us until we crossed over, in order that all the people of the earth may know the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, and that you may fear the Lord your God forever. It's not just a reminder. It's a message. And the message is this. There is a God in heaven. There is a God that's mighty to save. And that God is worthy of my reverence. And that God is worthy of my service. And by the way, that's my God. And as you come and see these stones of remembrance, remember who God is. Remember what God has done for you. And also proclaim, and I love it, to all the people of the earth, that we have a God that's mighty to save. You see, in our homes today, and in our church, God calls us to remember. I love the song that Ethan sang. I love the music this morning because it causes us to remember why we're here. It's not just a matter of formality. It's not just a matter of duty. It's not just a matter of habit. We have chosen to be here this morning because we are remembering what Christ Jesus has done for us. How many of us are sinners? If you don't have your hand up, you're a liar. Go ahead and raise it because you're a sinner. Okay, thank you. How many of us deserve to go to heaven? Why? I'm a sinner. And the only reason that I have that right, the only reason that I have the right to call God my Father is because he sent his Son into this world. And his Son died on a cross and paid the penalty for my sin. And I can walk in a relationship with God right here and right now, not based on my merit, because my merit deserves me nothing but hell. I can walk in that new relationship based on what Jesus Christ has done for me right here and right now. And one day, as Ashley sang just a minute ago, I'll be in heaven. And what a sweet day that's going to be. All because of Jesus. Guys, look, in our home and in our church, we're called to remember. We're called to remember why we're here. But it's not just a matter of remembrance. In our home and in our church, God calls us to be thankful. And I want you to just notice in your bulletin, I show you this all the time, but it says that this is a celebration of his resurrection. This is not a place to come and just simply be all quiet and hushed and somber. This should be a party. In that we've come to celebrate what Christ has done. We are to be thankful for what Jesus Christ has done. The Bible tells us that we're to offer him the sacrifice of thanksgiving. His praise, his worship should ever be on our lips. And when we stand and sing, when the musician can get it right back with him. When we stand and sing, whether it's on key or off key, it's a joyful noise, we should shout our praise to the Lord. We should see this as a time of a celebration because we're thankful for what God has done. It doesn't end with that. In our home and in our church, we are also to proclaim to a lost and dying world how great our God is. That's the commission that he's given you. That we're to go into all the world and make disciples of all the nations. And I have a question for you this morning. In your home, how do you teach your children the wonders of God? And before you say, oh, I'm old and I don't have kids at home anymore, this is a generational thing. Grandma, Grandpa, how do you teach your grandkids about the wonders of God? Do you have stones of remembrance in your home that point people to what God has done? Go in my office. Come to my home. What you're going to find all scattered around my life is pictures and rocks and olive wood carvings of where? Israel. Why? Because I love that place. And every time I walk into my office, that's what I see. And when we were talking to the pastor last week about our church, one of the things I had to show him was a picture of the office, because I had to show him all of the olive wood carvings and the picture of me and Becky and all of these things about being in Israel. And we get so excited about things like that. And I'm sure you have family photographs. I'm sure that you have mementos of past events and past vacations and things. My question to myself and to us is this: do we have stones of remembrance for what God has done? Is there a family altar in your house, in my house, which we gather around and we remember what God has done, we're thankful for what He's done, and we learn how to proclaim the message to others? Is there a place in which, in our home, that we have these stones of remembrance? So that when someone comes in and says, "What's that?" you can say, "Let me tell you about my Jesus." Let's turn it just a second. What about our church family here? And I want to be very careful with the way that I say this. We come together as a family of believers. As a church, right here at this place, do we have stones of remembrance to remind us why we're here and what we're doing? May I suggest this? I understand that the Holy Spirit indwells me, and the sanctuary is here. But might I suggest this? That this place become a holy site for us. Not that we worship this building, and not that we worship this ground. But what would happen if every Sunday we would go to church, and Sunday after Sunday, and year after year we go to church, and our children began to see that that place is a priority in my life? And that young one says, "Daddy, why do we go to that church all the time? Why do we always go there?" And you can lean up against the side of the car and say, "Son, let me tell you about my Jesus." We go there to remember what Jesus has done for us. We go there to celebrate His victory over the grave. We go there to learn about how to proclaim the gospel to others. Well, what would happen in our church? What would happen in our family if this became stone of remembrance for us? I mean, how many of us really thought about it today? Most of us, to be honest, got out and came to church because it's what? It's Sunday. We do it every week. I mean, you guys are here every time that you possibly can be. And that's awesome. That's great. But what would happen if the reason that we're here was a little bit deeper? That as we prepare to go to bed early on Saturday night so that we can have plenty of sleep, so that we can stay awake during that preacher's long message, and we got up early on Sunday morning, we gathered our children around, said, "Today we get to go to God's house. Today we get to go and we get to celebrate what Jesus has done for us." And this becomes a moment that is so holy for us. That we don't just simply come and attend and do things. We come and we worship God for who He is. We give Him His due worth in our life. And it begins to change us. It begins to change our home. It begins to impact the society around us and the country that we love so dearly. What would happen? But also, I want you to see a reminder. The reminder is simply this, and I'm not going to ask you to turn, but I want you to listen to a passage of Scripture in 1 Peter. Children of God, coming to Him, to Jesus, as to a living stone, rejected indeed by men, but chosen by God and is precious. And you also are living stones. You're being built up as a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, in order to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. You're a chosen generation. You're a royal priesthood. You're a holy nation, His own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of Him who calls you out of darkness into His marvelous light, who were once not a people, but now are the people of God, who had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. Beloved, I beg you, As pilgrims and sojourners, abstain from fleshly lust, which war against your souls, having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may by your good works, which they observe, glorify God in the day of visitation. Here's the point, and here's the reminder. You, we're living stones. We're stones of remembrance in this society. Not dead literal stones, but living stones. And we're to live in such a way that when the unsaved world around us wants to talk bad about our Savior, they look at your life, they look at my life, and they're drawn to Him. Because although they might not understand it, although they might not like it, it's changed you, it's changed me. And in the day of visitation, when God comes, they will be able to glorify God in that day. The question is, in our home and in our church, are there stones of remembrance? The reminder as we leave this building is that you and I are living stones to proclaim God's light in a darkened world. I'm 51 years old. Old to some, not to others. But I've seen this country change in a lot of ways. 1985, I was called to preach. In the last 32 years, I have seen marked change in church. And to be honest with you, it saddens me. And to be honest with you, it frightens me as to where we're headed as a nation. Richard and I were talking on Friday about where we're going and what's going on in our culture. And I repeat this as I close. The solutions to the ills of our culture in our country are not necessarily found in passing better laws, more laws, changing who's in positions of politics and government. We represent the change. You represent the change. Because only you know Jesus Christ and the poor people in Him. And the only way that our society is going to return back to where we used to be is for the Church of God to stand up and be who we are supposed to be. The challenge this morning, let's be what God's called us. Would you pray? Father, we thank you so much for the morning that you give us. Father, as we stop on this holiday weekend, God, may we be reminded of our calling and our commission to a lost and dying world. Father, I pray that we would not only come to church, but we would be the church. That when people look at us, they can see Jesus Christ. With your heads bowed, with your eyes closed. So look across this congregation. I see people that know Christ as Lord and Savior, and you've told me that Jesus is your Savior. Can I ask you one simple question? Are we living worthy of that call? Not just here on Sunday. I mean, when the rubber meets the road on Monday. I don't mean just when the day is good and bright and sunny. I mean, when it seems like everything's falling apart, when nothing's going right, can the people around us look and see Jesus makes a difference in their life? Is there someone in your world that needs Jesus? Have you told him? Have you shared with her? What are we doing to proclaim how great our God is? Church, this invitation is for us. We always give a time in which we can respond to God's word. Today needs to be a day not only of remembrance, but a day of challenge. That we continue to be who we're called to be. And that we live our lives in such a way that we point men and women, boys and girls, to Jesus Christ. Maybe you need to join me around an altar this morning and say, Lord, that's my surrender. I surrender all to you. Not for our glory, but for God's. Not for the attendance in our church, but for the upbuilding of His kingdom. Would you surrender your life completely? So, Father, as we respond to your word, lead us and guide us, we ask in Jesus' name. Very quietly and reverently, we'll invite you to stand to your feet. Alice is going to begin to play a hymn of invitation. You need to respond to this.